Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to credit the artist who painted the wallpaper and thumbnail for today's episode, Chinara. She's a really close friend of mine, and when she heard I was going to use one of her art pieces for today's episode due to its high focus on music, she actually graciously offered to paint a brand new one just for this episode. If you like it, follow the URL in the top left corner and go to chinara@deviantart.com and check out her work. It's really pretty and I'm sure you'd like it. Okay, on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Lunar Observer, the unscheduled podcast about fans discussing Insomniac games, the creators of Spyro, Ratchet, and Resistance. I'm Division 10, joined by Kebabs.
Hello, me Kebabs, back once again.
Hey!
Hello.
So, we have yet another Lunar Observer. These are coming fast and furious, aren't they?
Yeah, this is an unusual first for the show because most of the time we are too busy playing the game or there just isn't quite this much to talk about. But I guess this is a unique situation because there are technically two big things coming out at the moment, so them combined means we get to do more episodes.
Yeah, not only that, but Song of the Deep is what, July? So then right after this we've got yet another game.
Edge of Nowhere.
Edge of Nowhere. No, Edge of Nowhere is coming out soon too. Song of the Deep is this summer.
Yeah, well that's what I mean. On top of the two Ratchet and Clank pieces.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how much stuff we're getting all at once.
Yeah. So, in the last episode, I actually almost lost my mind trying to figure out the name of the protagonist of Resistance 3, Joseph Capelli. It wasn't listed anywhere. And as I was putting away the game after finishing up the recording last episode, I saw in the back of the manual it says to access all online features, redeem this code. But of course nowadays, I thought it should really read, to access all online features, play before April 8th, 2014, because of course the servers don't work anymore.
Yeah, so does that code do anything at all now?
You can. I've already redeemed it, so technically no. But I would imagine that if you're able to find a new copy of Resistance 3, you would be able to input the code just fine. It's just the actual in-game getting to the online portion which would be troublesome.
Yeah, All For One servers are still running. I remember when Resistance servers went down and they did that last hoo-ha. But
yeah, I was actually there for that, where I didn't really play Resistance 3 online, but a former person who no longer works at Insomniac, Lisa Brown, effectively the creator of the Slow Down Bull idea, she actually hopped online and I was able to play some Resistance 3 co-op with her. And it was really fun because she shared a lot of behind-the-scenes information about the level design and the development of the game, because that was her role as a level designer.
That's super cool. I'd also like to talk... I know you guys have probably heard me yap on and on about my cosplay for the jillionth time, but something pretty interesting happened to me last week, and it's actually more Ratchet and Clank related than cosplay related, so if you'll humor me before we get into the news, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
So, this past weekend, I was volunteering at an event for kids to meet various costume characters. We're talking like Anna and Elsa, the whole Bat crew, Wonder Woman, and I was there as Ratchet and Clank. Well, guess who had the longest line? It wasn't Anna and Elsa.
It was Clank.
It was Ratchet and Clank, which was nuts. And it wasn't because I was a mascot character. There were several other there. There was a Digimon. There was a Pokemon trainer with a Pokemon. There was even a guy with a live tarantula that the kids all liked. So, it wasn't that I was some mascot character. It was that not only was I Ratchet and Clank, they knew I was Ratchet and Clank. They wanted to come specifically to talk to me. which was insane. And the reason why I say that is, up until maybe 2 weeks ago, there wasn't very much marketing for the movie. So unless you, say, had a family that liked the games and you had a little kid and they were watching, say, mom or dad play, because the older games, not that they're not kid-friendly, but they're not exactly like, we're talking 4 to 7-year-old range here. That maybe the top end of that would be playing it, but 4-year-olds certainly wouldn't be able to play this on their own, not without assistance. And
or if they were playing Deadlocked on Couch Potato.
They're coming up to me, knowing who I was and excited for the movie and asking me questions like, do you defeat Drek? And I'm like trying to keep character without spoiling anything. They're like, what's wrong with Clank? Because my version of Clank is a little bit rusted on like weathering. He's not clean, and I'm like, yeah, he was kind of just in a ship crash, so he's not feeling too well. But it was just it's interesting to see that the marketing seems to be working. And
yeah, I mean, anecdotally, people on the Insomniac forums have been saying that they've been seeing the TV spots that we'll get into later. They've been seeing the TV spots airing on Cartoon Network, which I think is a really good move. That is the best market that you could market this movie to.
Yeah, they're airing on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. I think someone also mentioned that they were airing on Disney XD as well, which is Disney's equivalent to Cartoon Network.
Cool. Well, that means more channels, because if it was just if it was a Disney movie like Frozen, it would only be on Disney XD, wouldn't it?
No, that would be on the main Disney channel. So Disney XD is where they have all their Marvel stuff.
Well, yes, that's what I mean.
Okay, yes.
It would only be on the Disney channels. It wouldn't appear on the other two major channels that kids also go to, because, kids aren't owned by corporate.
Yeah, so they're hitting all the basically all the major children's networks, and like we've said on previous shows, not that the movie isn't for us, but the movie's demo is very squarely aimed at a much younger audience than, say, the game is.
Yeah, I mean, when I played the game, the original Ratchet and Clank, the game came out in 2002, so I would have been about 12, 13, and I loved the game, so the target audience is effectively still the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that the games are now anywhere from 3 to 14 years old, depending on which one you've been playing, and the demographic has grown up with these games. We're talking about people my age who now have small children who are going to take their kids to see it. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you're going to have some kids who didn't grow up with gaming parents who might be dragging their parents to the movie.
Yeah,
so you're going to get it both ways.
Yeah, and that's what I think is really good about the movie, where it is really authentic to what Ratchet and Clank is, since the PS3 days. But at the same time, it has been designed and works entirely on its own, because it is starting from the beginning.
Yeah, so it basically learned its both mistakes and the good points of the past almost 15 years of Ratchet and built upon them. We've got the future saga creeping in with some of the story elements.
Yeah, which if you were telling the story from the beginning with that knowledge that would happen in mind, you would have included that in the first place, because that is important information. Well, it will become important later, but it is. You would prefer to have set that up earlier.
Yeah. Like in the first game, it's never actually stated that Ratchet is an orphan. It's just kind of implied.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't important to his character at the time, because, well, the story wasn't as important as it was nowadays. It was more about an excuse to have jokes and get to the next planet to blow up more crap with different weapons.
Which, is fine, and I liked blowing up crap with different weapons. But I like blowing up crap with different weapons and feeling for the characters that are blowing up crap with different weapons even more. So, that's my little cosplay-related anecdote, and I'm really, really happy that that people are taking notice. and that it's actually getting the recognition which Ratchet and Clank really deserves. So,
Yeah,
yay!
I mean, it is one of Sony's longest running franchises, and a franchise which has consistently been around. I mean, you have games like Gran Turismo which show up and then disappear again, or Sly or Jack, where they were big once, but they aren't really around anymore. Ratchet and Clank has stayed around for a long time.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I can't think of too many. The only other properties that really have that staying power are Mario properties. Well, Nintendo as a whole. You've got your Mario, your Links, your Pokemons. Like, people who get Nintendo games are getting just a newer iteration of those same core titles with some interesting, quirky ones. But Sony and Xbox don't really have that.
Yeah, I mean, you think to, say, Gears of War or Halo, and they don't appear as regularly as Ratchet and Clank does. Now, on the opposite end of the coin, that can be a detriment because, franchise fatigue is a thing, and Ratchet isn't a franchise known for mixing it up. And when they do mix it up, it generally doesn't go well. That's one of the advantages of not staying around for a long time. You create demand, so that even though Grand Theft Auto 5 is actually incredibly similar to 4, because it has been so long between the two, you don't really care. You're just happy to play a new Grand Theft Auto game with much better visuals.
Yeah, it's the same thing with, say, Bethesda titles, your Elder Scrolls and your Fallout's. They space those out with years in advance.
So, yeah, now that, well, are we done with our intro shenanigans?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say on the game front. I'm just plowing through Skyrim and Fire Emblem Fates still, because both those games take forever.
Yeah,
You've been.
I've been getting back into Lego Dimensions now that I have most of the toys that I need, but I could have an entire episode talking about that, so I'll just skip along and get right into the news. So, in today's episode, there are 5 items on the list. Just doing it just like P.S. I Love You, because I have these numbered. And the first item is Bros Composer's Edge of Nowhere. Michael Bros has confirmed via a tweet that he is composing the music for Insomniac's upcoming VR title, Edge of Nowhere. Bros has in the past composed the music for All for One, Full Frontal Assault, and Into the Nexus, and has recorded the music for the upcoming Ratchet & Clank video game based on the movie based on the game. Into the Nexus and likely Ratchet & Clank 2016 was recorded using a live orchestra. Edge of Nowheres is recorded in Nashville, although no further details were given in his tweet, because 140 characters.
Yeah, and there's more than one major orchestra in that region, so we can't really say which one of them it might be.
Well, as you know, I am very storied in my Nashville trivia, and this is completely stumping me. I'm rather shocked.
So, but the more important thing is that we're noticing Bros composing not just Ratchet and Clank anymore, but that he almost seems like a go-to composer for Insomniac. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there was a period of time in the PS3 era where the composers that Insomniac were using had very interesting variants. Now, of course, you put different composers into different roles based on what you want, but with Spyro the Dragon, they of course had Stuart Copeland of The Police, but for the PS2 games, they had David Bergeau, who also actually composed the music for Insomniac's very first game, Disruptor. And then with the PS3 era of Ratchet, David Bergeau composed Tools of Destruction and Quest for Booty, as well as the original Resistance. And then things got interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last thing Bergeau even composed for First Off?
Well, I can go to his wiki. Do you mean Ratchet specifically?
Well, Ratchet specifically, that I know. That's Quest for Booty, because after that you've got, I can't remember what his name is for A Crack in Time, but then Bros took over Salcho, and then Bros took over for everything since then.
Well, looking at his Wikipedia page, his last documentary, American Coup, 2010, TV, Bollywood Hero 2009, Filmography, Arabian Chronicles 2008. Games. The last one that he actually composed new music for was the PlayStation Move title Sports Champions 2 in 2012, and he hasn't done anything since, so it kind of feels like he isn't composing anything anymore.
Yeah, I mean, with his most recent film and television being even older than that, that's 4 years now that there hasn't been a single composed item from him. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Now, I know some really knowledgeable Ratchet and Clank fans will probably be saying, well, what about Before the Nexus? I don't count Before the Nexus because all of his music is actually reused from Tools of Destruction, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, so he's credited as composing it, and he did, but he composed it in 2006 for 2007 in game.
Yeah. So with Tools of Destruction, I feel like there was obviously a very clear shift in tone and presentation and emphasis on the story. But I also feel the general mood of Ratchet changed as well with what Insomniac wanted out of the music. They wanted more heroic, almost superhero type musical score. And that is reflected in how the music sounds. Tools of Destruction has a lot more orchestra in it, and a more epic feeling of heroes doing, heroes do big things in the game, which is not apparent in the music for the PS2 games, which are more content with having an atmosphere of a quirky future.
Yeah, it really, there's a big tonal shift between Deadlocked and Tools of Destruction, which has continued through to today, of switching it over from Ratchet just wanting to have space ventures to the adventure coming to him instead of the other way around, and Ratchet having to be the bigger Lombax, as it were.
Yeah. So for what's interesting is when you compare the orchestrals for Tools of Destruction to Up Your Arsenal, which up until that point had the most orchestrals, where in Up Your Arsenal it worked really well. There was a very military slant that I feel Bijou was able to absolutely nail, especially with the Ranger mission style music. With in particular, I'm thinking of Blackwater City, the Return to Blackwater City, the music for that, as well as the Ranger mission on Tyrannosis, the one where you had to go into the hover ship and shoot down a lot of things on a desert island, sort of. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I actually really liked the Ranger missions in general, although I was terrible at the dropship missions. So I heard that music a lot because I had to redo them so many times.
Yeah, so... Yeah, but I feel like it didn't really work as well when he was doing it in Tools of Destruction, and looking at what happened afterwards, I'm suspecting that Insomniac kind of knew that. They had Bijou back for Quest for Booty because that very specifically has a different style, because it's very much pitched as a pirate game, so the music is going to be rather different. But then for Crack in Time, they had their replacement for Resistance, which was Boris Salcho, who composed for Resistance 2 and 3, who took over from Bijou after he scored Resistance 1, where I kind of feel the same thing happened. Bijou, I feel like he didn't quite nail the actual musical sound that Insomniac wanted for Resistance 1, so they went to Salcho, who uses an actual orchestra, and I felt like that made all the difference. And they tried him as well for A Crack in Time to up and down results.
Yeah, I was I mentioned this with Kebabs earlier, that A Crack in Time is interesting in that, in my opinion, it has both the best and worst music of all the games. I love the theremin that he utilizes on Nefarious' space station, but and all of his themes as well. The opening theme is excellent. But you hear that and you immediately know what you're getting into. But also some of the planet themes, like is it Quartos? God, it's been a while since I played that game. Quantos, thank you. The very first planet where you land, and it's just
Crashland.
Yes, it's just Ratchet and Quark going through the wilderness, and the music's just there.
Yeah.
But then you also have the space sectors, which has nothing to do with Salcho, because that's all licensed music.
Unless you've tuned into Polaris Classical, of course.
True.
Yeah. I feel like Salcho did a really good job of introducing a lot of new themes into the games. I think what I'll do now is that I'll just sort of list them off and introduce clips of the themes into the episode so that the audience can listen to them. I guess I'll hum them for Division 10 because obviously you can't do that in the middle of recording. So you have the main theme, which is this. You have Azimuth's theme, which goes like. There is Vorsalon's theme, which is. And the Fongoid theme, which is this. I love that track. It's so bright and hopeful.
Oh yes, it. You know what it reminds me of? Every Legend of Zelda starting village ever.
Before it is burninated.
Yup, basically.
Yeah, in which that theme is.
Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants.
Peasants!
And their thatched roof cottages!
Cottages!
Oh dear, and I just scared my cats.
So yeah, but that's not to say that Bejo didn't have his own musical themes, because he introduced two themes which I feel was a bit of a shame to have let go when Salcho and Bros came around, where you have... There is no official name for this, but I like to call it the friendship theme, because it is mainly played in relation to Ratchet and Clank and sort of their various antics. You can hear it at the beginning of Tools of Destruction, where it goes... And I first heard this theme with Up Your Arsenal, where you can hear it in... When I first heard it and picked up on it, it was when Ratchet gets back from the Starship Phoenix after Quark apparently dies above Zeldrin.
Well, we are all very glad that you made it back safely.
Did you detect any other craft leaving the Star Cruiser? An escape pod? Another shuttle, maybe?
And I heard it as well in Size Matters and, of course, Tools of Destruction. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting. But probably the most significant theme for me was Captain Quark's theme, which first appeared in Up Your Arsenal. It pretty much appeared any time he was showing off his ego, where it's like...
Yeah, the very heavy drum and horn section.
Yeah, sort of at the end.
Yeah. It's basically, hey, look at me, folks! I'm amazing!
Yeah, it's very bombastic and heroic and almost egotistical, which is 100% Captain Quark, so it fits in very well. So I was sad to find that the theme hasn't ever actually been used again, because I think that is one of Ratchet and Clank's best.
It is. The other one I really liked was, now this is Bros, but the opening theme for Into the Nexus was amazing.
Yes. So Boris introduced the concept of each Ratchet game having its own theme for that particular adventure. So All for One has... Frontal Assault has which is boring, but then you have and then Into the Nexus has
Yeah, of all of the themes, in my opinion, I like Into the Nexus is the best.
I like Into the Nexuses, but it does take a while to get going, if that makes sense.
It does. There's also that really sweet chiptunes version.
Oh, yes. I remember doing that. I actually uploaded that to YouTube, and the guy who actually did the chiptune version specifically actually commented on it in the comments saying, "Hey, thanks for uploading this. I did that. Could you please credit me?" And so I did. His name is Adam Gubman.
Adam Gubman.
Adam Gubman.
Well, however you pronounced your last name, Adam, A+ work on that chiptune.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. It manages to turn a theme about a spooky game into an 8-bit classic. So, yeah, and then after Boris Elcho did his turn at A Crack in Time, we went to Bros for All for One and Full Frontal Assault and Into the Nexus. And I was a bit mixed when it came to his music, because All for One soundtrack I felt was mostly boring.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the mixed bag that I felt A Crack in Time was. It didn't have the amazing highs and the really bad lows of A Crack in Time, but it was just kind of mediocre.
It was consistently in the middle. I mean, there are some standout tracks. Aldaro's Plains is one of my all-time favorite Ratchet and Clank music pieces because it is so graceful.
It is, and it's a weird mix in that I'm going to say I barely felt it was there, but not in the it was annoying way. It was just it worked.
Yeah. So conversely, when I'm talking about Full Frontal Assault's music, I actually found the music for Full Frontal Assault to be grating because of the type of action that was on the game. It was almost always some kind of battle. But the music I felt represented itself as random horns and strings, it felt like to me.
Yeah, and I think it was trying to heighten up the fact that you were constantly in a battle, because unlike the other Ratchet and Clank games you are, it is purely just a tower defense game. There really isn't exploration in this game like there are in other Ratchet titles.
I actually disagree. I think there is, Full Frontal Assault has exploration put up to the forefront more so than most Ratchet games, because if you don't explore the maps, then you're not going to find all the secrets, and in particular you need to find all the bolts to spend on your defenses and pick up new weapons. So in my opinion, Full Frontal Assault actually has the most important emphasis on exploration. It's just done so in sort of an enclosed area where you have lots of fighting in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There is an emphasis on exploration, but it's not the same kind that a Ratchet and Clank game normally has. It's not about taking your time and looking around for secrets. It's really about banging into enemies and running.
Yeah, because more so than any other Ratchet game, you are constantly on a timer. So it doesn't feel like exploration. It just feels like a mad dash to get everything. So it's more the tone of the exploration that is different, not the exploration itself.
Yeah, and because of that, you don't have the periods of breathing room that you do in the other Ratchet games. You don't have you don't have your swimming in swimming section in Fastoon, for example, or your combat arena where you can just kind of hang around outside and play a really terrible twin stick shooter in A Crack in Time. There's no known downtime except for in between missions on the ship.
but then the ship doesn't have any of its own exploration, which I guess you could say is a big missed opportunity, because I would have loved to explore the second Phoenix and find secrets and various goodies with the new items and gadgets that you pick up.
Yeah, the fact that the items and gadgets are just sort of locked up on the wall, it would have been really nice for going off of music here, but like to be able to go and test out all the weapons in the ship at the very least.
Yeah. So moving on to Into the Nexus, and this is where I felt like Bros sort of ascended. A lot of people don't really like Into the Nexus's soundtrack, but I actually find it really good because of the use of an actual live orchestra, where just using a live orchestra adds a lot of life and air to the music, and you can feel that with tracks like the first time you're on the Nebulok 7 sort of exploring around, and in particular Igliak when you're riding the taxi to the battlefield after leaving the museum, and also when you first arrive and are walking from Aphelion to the museum. Those are some of the best Ratchet and Clank tracks I've ever heard.
Yeah, and the atmospheric stuff, I know a lot of people don't like the sort of creepy underground nether music, but
yeah, I would agree.
It's not,
I mean, that stuff
not,
feels pretty boring and generic to me.
It's not something I'd listen to on its own, but in the same way that Alderanus Plains, I'm probably butchering this because I can never pronounce Aldaros Plains, music fits the situation so well. That's exactly how I feel about that music. Is it's not something I'd want to sit and listen to. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it works sort of in the moment, but in terms of casual listening, it kind of doesn't.
No. It just feels like a perfect blend of atmospheric music. Is it the best piece? No, but it does fit its situation very well.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next game, which is the 2016 title. We've heard snippets of the music here and there, and so far I'm pretty pleased with it. It's not as instantly quirky or electronic as David Bijot's soundtrack, and I think that will be the biggest hindrance to the music, where people are just going to compare it to Bijot's originals and say, why didn't they include the old music? Insomniac, you are the dumb.
Well, from a legal standpoint, I can tell you why they didn't include the old music, and that's because...
By quoting Vidi.
Huh?
By quoting
yes,
Vidi.
we can quote Vidi, but in general, they don't have the rights to the music. The composer owns the rights to the music, unless the contract that they're in specifically states that the game company does.
Yeah. Which is why I'm a little bit confused as to why Before the Nexus was able to use Bijot's music, but apparently Insomniac can't do the same for Ratchet and Clank 1. But then, as Vidi points out, contracts differ from game to game.
Yeah. The PS2 games, he might have had complete rights, whereas in the PS3 titles he worked on, he might have had to share or retain certain rights for other games. Or maybe like mobile spin-offs counted towards that same title, but not in another full game. Yeah. Which I've heard is actually quite common.
So far I'm really liking the music. It switches between grand and heroic orchestrals, and because it's a live orchestra this time, they feel very atmospheric. As we demonstrated in a previous episode where I played a sample for it for Division 10, and you really liked it. On the other side of the coin, he's also exploring a lot of the quirky electronic sounds that Bijot was so well known for. So it's good to see that Bros is sort of more immersing himself in that sort of musical style, and I personally think he's pretty good at it.
He is. The piece that I really liked, and I thought showed off some of his skill, in particular at being able to match that style, is Iridia. You get a very little bit of that techno in the background, without it being, again, oppressive or sort of clashing with the rest of the musical style. It still feels epic, but there is still that twinge of techno, for lack of a better.
So, speaking of the latest Ratchet and Clank game having music, the next news item number 2, is You can now pre-order the original motion picture soundtrack for the Ratchet & Clank movie. Film Music Reporter has the scoop, saying that the film's music has been composed by Evan Wise, who has produced many classical music tracks that have been used on MTV, Discovery Channel, and even Xbox. So, now he's a traitor. Yeah.
Traitor! Traitor!
Traitor!
Well,
TR-8R.
Yeah, thank you for coming over to the proper side of the scale.
Okay, anyway, while my research may be a bit spotty, it appears to me that Ratchet & Clank will be his first feature film.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And given his chops, it sounds like this is the right film for him to start with, because it's going to have a bit of a video game feel to it.
Yeah. What is, of course, even more notable than that is the fact that this will be the second ever Ratchet & Clank official soundtrack.
Right, the other being All for One.
Yep, which you can still buy, I believe.
Yeah, it's on iTunes. But that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard any of his work, being that he hasn't done any film soundtracks. But the interesting thing of note to me, more than who it is and the music that they're doing, is that in this day and age, you can only get the soundtrack right now as a physical soundtrack. You can't get a digital copy. And that was a big surprise.
Yeah, that is a bit odd, because you would expect it to be more convenient to have a digital version. Nonetheless, I've ordered one for when it comes out, which is the same date as the movie, April 29th.
But yeah, it's just very strange. The other thing is we are not going to list off the track names for a very good reason. And this is true of many soundtracks, in that soundtracks often spoil major plot points.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that any individual track spoils a big moment in the film. I mean, there's no, Nefarious is revealed to be Ratchet's father type track title. But when you look at the track names, you can actually construe the structure and the direction that the plot takes, so that where it goes is completely spoiled.
Yeah, so if you'd like to spoil yourself, you can go look up the track names, but we're not going to do that for you.
Yeah, there are 16 tracks on the official soundtrack, so this isn't a complete recordings like with Lord of the Rings. This is sort of, I guess, a best of, you could say, that while also containing the structure of the film itself when you're listening to it.
Yeah, it seems like this is a sort of short list compilation.
Yeah. The official soundtrack also includes pop track, probably in the end credit song Bad News Travels Fast by Jelly Roll, featuring J.R. Moore.
Now, the interesting thing about this song is that this is two things. One is that it is an already existing song, but we know that Jelly Roll re-recorded it for the movie.
Yeah, and the specific reason for that, I'm assuming, is because the original song features things like smoking and
quite a bit of swearing.
Well, when I was listening to it, I didn't really hear that much swearing. It's just, well, yeah, he has his own particular style that he adheres to. It's not like profuse amounts of swearing, but it's still sprinkled in there for what the song is.
What I mean is that I don't know how the rating system works in New Zealand, but in the United States, a PG movie, which Ratchet is, actually has a hard limit on the number of curses that can be said.
Yeah, I believe it's like a limit of 1 or 2.
Yes, and it's also which curses can be said. That song alone would already cover those curses and then some. It would probably be bumped up to PG-13. So the song's probably been re-recorded with slightly different lyrics.
Yeah. I'm not really that much into rap, so for me the song didn't really do anything emotionally. And what was also surprising for me when listening to the original was unless they've substantially changed the lyrics to match the movie, the song itself doesn't really tie itself into the events of the film that much.
Based on what you know from reading the novel.
Yeah, well, even then, the other 2 tracks that we've heard before, the 2 main ones, which is You and I by Galantis and Could Have Been Me from The Struts, their lyrics actually match up with not the specific plot, but very much the themes and ideas and personal feelings of the characters in the movie. And for me, Bad News Travels Fast, the existing one from 2013, doesn't really do that.
I'm wondering if it's going to be the same sort of bass beat with an entirely new lyric set.
Yeah. It could be, for example, a song that refers to, for example, the villains. In which case, I think the song would actually be appropriate with a couple of lyric changes.
Yeah, and again, I think for spoiler reasons, you can go check out the original song. You can even buy it on iTunes already because the song came out in 2013 on a separate track. Again, what is the song title? For people
Bad
who do
News
want to check it out?
Travels Fast.
Yeah. So, it's there, but I think that the version that's going to be on the CD is going to be quite different from what we may be used to.
Yeah. So, item number 3 is the final trailer for the game has been released, and it uses the song Could Have Been Me by The Struts, and that song makes that trailer.
Yes, it does. Unlike the Galantis You and I, in which case my reaction was, holy moly, they got Galantis for the song for the trailer. I had no idea who the Struts were, and I immediately wanted to know more, and kind of just went and bought their CD. So they got a $10 sale on iTunes out of me. But the song is just perfect. You've got the lyrics that just make sense, dealing with the character who's singing, discussing how he doesn't want to end his life with regrets or end his situation with regrets, saying, "Oh, it could have been me."
He doesn't want to live his life, I think.
Yeah. He doesn't want to live his life with those kind of "oh, it could have been me" type regrets. He just wants to get out there and do everything. 9-to-5 job? No way.
Yeah, exactly. And so the song is very much told from Ratchet's perspective. The idea being that, he's the Galactic Ranger tryouts, I guess, are coming along, and he doesn't want to say not go and then look on the TV and see someone else being the cool Ranger guy. He wants to be the one going out there being cool and heroic and out on adventures.
Yeah, and it really fits, and so does the Galantis song. And I know we had an argument about this offline. The original trailer song I also feel fits pretty well, but it is very difficult to understand the business's lyrics because their lead singer sings in a very unusual and unique way.
Yeah, I mean, do you have the lyrics for that song so that I can finally understand what he's talking about?
Yeah, sure. I'll shoot them your way. Give me a moment.
A short moment later. Yeah, I'm reading that. To me, it doesn't really feel that much like Ratchet and Clank, aside from the writing on science thing, which feels like, ooh, Ratchet's using the thruster pack.
I think that's exactly when that particular lyric showed up in the trailer too.
Okay, well, that's neat, but yeah, the song does sound cool, but again, lyrically, it doesn't quite match with what Ratchet is about to me. On the other side of the coin, Galantis' Runaway You and I song, I just call it You and I because it's easier to remember, has Think I Can Fly When I'm With You, My Arms Are Wide, Catching Fire as the Wind Blows, which feels like the thruster pack to me. But then you have I Want to Run Away Anywhere Out This Place, I Want to Run Away Just You and I, which feels even more appropriate to Ratchet and Clank 1, actually, how Ratchet wants to leave Veldin to more exciting places, because he really wants to get off Veldin. There's nothing for him there.
Yeah. Even in this, both versions of Ratchet and Clank, the original 2002 as well as the reimagining, he doesn't feel like there's a future for him on Veldin, although the impetus for him leaving is slightly different in each case. In the original game,
he just wants to leave, and the fact that he meets up with Clank and is able to go on a cool adventure is almost incidental, and he takes it up very quickly. Whereas with the new version, the movieverse, he's leaving because he has a goal. He wants to join, the people he admires the most, the Galactic Rangers.
Yeah, but either way, this song really does fit.
Yeah. As for Could Have Been Me, it goes, don't want to live as an untold story, rather go out in a blaze of glory. And then in the second verse, it's don't want to live as an unsung melody. I'd rather listen to the silence telling me blah 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 blah. Don't want to wake up on Monday morning before the work's getting my skin crawling. Sounds very much like Ratchet, doesn't it?
Yeah, he don't want a 9 to 5 at all.
Nope. I don't think Ratchet has ever actually had a traditional job at any point in his life in any version of the story.
It looked to me like in the beginning of Tools of Destruction, he was doing ship repair on Metropolis.
I felt that was more him working on a ship of his own design. Because,
okay.
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
one
he
for a
could be
client.
repairing somebody else's, but there is no mention of the fact that it is someone else's, so I always just assumed that was his, and he built it himself. Which is why, to me, it was so interesting that the rocket sled this time around is actually owned by Grimroth.
Yeah. In the original games, the actual breadwinner wasn't Ratchet, it was Clank for his movies. Clank earned the money for for the two of them. And then Ratchet basically looted the bodies of everybody he killed. Where do you
That's
think
a good
all those
point, actually. In Ratchet and Clank 1, we can assume that he's unemployed. In Ratchet and Clank 2, he sort of rides off of the coattails of his success, and then just as it's winding down, he gets hired as a Megacorp commando. When he and that carries through to Up Your Arsenal, he sort of joins the Galactic Rangers, but Up Your Arsenal sort of happens within the space of a day, and then he's the captain of the Starship Phoenix after Sasha leaves.
Yeah, so he has held jobs. He was a commando for Megacorp because Fizzwidget, by the way, 13-year-old game spoilers, the real Fizzwidget was locked in a broom closet, and it looks like he was still hired by said real Fizzwidget in the interim. Because he was still on Bogon at the beginning of Up Your Arsenal. He hadn't gone back to Solana.
Yeah.
So he has held jobs. Commando, then Phoenix pilot, and I would assume then that at the beginning of Tools of Destruction he was still actually working as, say, paramilitary for Solana?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he kind of feels a bit like a drifter, to me. I mean, Ratchet's monetary situation is very plainly not a focus of the games, because then, okay, how is he paying the bills for Tools of Destruction to a crack in time after he retires from hero work in All for One, and then goes off and does his own thing, and really just calls in a favor for the Nebulox 7 move job?
I think for the interim is they might have been banking off of Clank's film money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing.
You could also assume that as heroes, Ratchet and Clank get at least something, because they are always the ones on the front lines doing all the work.
Yeah. Or Ratchet has just stored and scrimped all the money that he's stolen off of his enemies.
Yeah,
by the end of each game, you've got at least 1 million bolts, if not more.
Ooh, that's a very good point, actually. He just, actually, he sells all his weapons at the end of each adventure. There you go, problem solved.
And that's why he never has the same ones other than his wrench.
No, and you're like, why would Ratchet chuck away his weapons? Well, he needs money, and money's more important. So, in the trailer we saw the official reveal of Veldin, despite it having been significantly leaked earlier via other places.
Yeah, I'm digging the little arena that's there, and I wonder if we're gonna go back to that later, because I know, unlike the original Ratchet and Clank, we can return to Veldin. There's a very clear pad there.
Yeah, which I pointed out in my in-depth, which you can see by checking out the rest of our videos. Plug. And also the fact that in the live streams by GameSpot and Polygon, you could actually see Veldin as a selectable option at the top of the planet list.
Yeah, but I mean, unlike in the original Ratchet and Clank, where he's just trying to run away, and therefore there's no reason to return to Veldin, and you can't even choose to until plot reasons let you go back there. In this game, he still has Grimroth, he still has his garage, and he's not trying to run away from Veldin so much as join the Rangers.
Yeah, so...
He's running towards, not away.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the look of Veldin. It feels much more interesting than it did the last two times we saw it, where it just looked very bland and muddy.
Yeah, this time around, it has a lot more desert foliage. There's a lot more signs of life. The first time around when you see Veldin, it's completely deserted. I mean, there's those oil rigs up there, but it's almost like it's all automated, and Ratchet's like the only one living there. Not only is he an orphan, but he's utterly alone. His only companion being the radio that he mentions.
I think a populace was implied for Veldin. Otherwise, there wouldn't really be, the threat of destroying it wouldn't really hurt Ratchet that much. I just think that through level design and the fact that if you notice Ratchet and Clank 1 doesn't have any populous NPCs, even in the bustling metropolis at all, that, a populace is implied but just not present or visible when you're playing.
Yeah, this time around they have the capability to add in that populace.
Yeah, via the crowd that we see very clearly at the Galactic Ranger tryouts.
But, so we got to see that mini arena, which means arenas are at least back in some capacity. I hope that either we can return to that arena for more challenges, or going commando and Up Your Arsenal, there's 2 arena.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Well, Up Your Arsenal only has 1, but it's 2 distinct.
Yeah, I'm honestly beginning to doubt that this game even has an arena, because the big place for me to have put the arena would have been Blackwater City. It is early enough to introduce it to you so that you can return to it again later like you could in Tools of Destruction, to visit it a second time with more challenges. And also Up Your Arsenal, actually. Except it's not there. Instead, we have the Rhino Freak at the end of the sewer path. So, unless it's on Kalibo 3 with the hoverboard track, then I really can't think of a place where an arena could be situated.
It could be in the Ranger base. You could go back to it later. It's entirely possible that we revisit planets with additional stuff.
Maybe. I mean, given that Ratchet is, he goes around and Quark sends him on a death mission, a suicide mission, by having him go to the BTS and encounter the Snaggle Beast. I wouldn't be surprised if we did return to Kerwan. It just didn't feel like when GameSpot and Polygon were playing it that you could actually enter the Hall of Heroes, which is the Galactic Ranger base, because, yeah, the gates were closed, but more than that, past the gates, the level was actually... You know the TV trope, conservation of detail?
Yeah, the less detailed something is, the more detailed something is, the more likely it is to be important.
Yes, that was totally in effect beyond the in-game gates at the Hall of Heroes, where it was very bare and empty, and it didn't look like a place that you would walk through at all compared to the rest of the city that you do explore because of how detailed it is. So I don't think we'll actually be able to enter the Hall of Heroes in the game.
The only other thing that I noticed specifically about this trailer that wasn't present in other ones, and again, 14-year-old spoilers, if you've played the original Ratchet & Clank, there's one major story beat that you know, and that's that Quark betrays you.
Well, yeah, in the original game, he didn't betray you. It's more that the twist is that Quark was working with Drek the whole time, and he was in fact he doesn't think of himself as the villain, but from Ratchet's perspective, he is a villain.
Yeah.
And that is very heavily implied in the story trailer that Captain Quark becomes an actual antagonist. And we have evidence as to why this is, because we have seen the Galactic Ranger billboard with Quark looking very angrily and upset at Ratchet on the big billboard, as well as the fact that he sends Ratchet on a suicide mission.
With the additional thing of, do not tell anyone.
Yeah, he specifically says,
trick.
Do not tell anyone. Ever. Seriously, this is like our little secret.
But the big one is that...
The boss battle against Quark appears to take place in the same location as the boss battle against Nefarious.
Yeah, it might be a back-to-back boss fight, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. The fact that it happens at the end of the game has, in the same location as a spot where we could see Nefarious. Now, where is the only location that we have seen Nefarious that isn't Drake Industries HQ?
On the deplanetizer itself.
Yeah, so Quark being on the deplanetizer. Now, he's on the deplanetizer in what appears to be relative safety. Why could that be? Could it be he works for Drake, maybe? Yeah, so Quark is an in-boss fight, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And there's actually further evidence to support this, because we've pointed out before that Nefarious is in a mech that is very similar to Drake's final boss mech. But also, when you're facing off against Quark, there are these little black droid things with red antennas sticking out of them, which are basically newer versions of the exact same droids that Drake used on his final boss fight as well.
Yeah, the little mechs that we see around, at first I thought they were Glove of Doom mechs, but they don't quite look right.
Yeah, and the fact that they're running towards Ratchet.
Yeah.
And the other most interesting thing is the weapon that Ratchet is shown using against those droids.
The Rhino.
Yes, the Rhino. Only whisper of it. Actually, I'm not going to whisper on it much longer because this is really annoying and hard to do.
Get yourself a drink.
Visually it appears to be... It's basically the Rhino 4 that works like the Rhino 7. That's the easiest way to sum it up.
Yeah, it's sort of like they took the best of skin of the Rhino plus the best of capabilities of the Rhino.
I would disagree. To me, the best Rhino has always been the Rhino 2 from Going Commando. I'm not sure if you've ever been able to use it.
I do have the Rhino 2, and I've used it, and it's great. I've gotten every weapon in Going Commando.
Yeah, it is a auto-targeting, rocket-launching machine gun, which makes it the best version, in my opinion.
It's basically, you've done all this crap, you've earned it, go blow everything up.
Exactly. The Rhinos, the Rhino 5 and 7 are more like Rhino shotguns, where they focus their attack in sort of a funnel. Now that funnel is constant, unlike most other shotguns in Ratchet and Clank, but the point is still there. They're more like they fire in a cone. They don't fire individual auto-targeting rockets. You still have to point the thing.
Yeah, it's not a completely press X and watch everything die. Well, press O and watch everything die because X is jump.
But the other interesting thing is the fact that we have actually seen in footage from trailers and stuff that Nefarious is also wielding a Rhino. Yeah.
So maybe the holo plans that Ratchet gets are from Nefarious's plans?
Maybe. It does make a certain amount of sense because the Rhino Freak on Blackwater City actually says that it was Gadgetron who split up the plans for the Rhino. So it would make sense if Nefarious was a former employee of Gadgetron, why they seem to keep making this highly dangerous super weapon that they constantly have to stop people from finding.
Yeah, because Nefarious is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually like that idea, the fact that each Rhino in the old continuity is actually a product of Dr. Nefarious.
he was bored one afternoon.
Especially the Rhino 6, where he actually gets to wear it.
Well, the Rhino 6 was very specifically Croyd's.
No, it wasn't. He got the plans from a smuggler.
Oh, see, I thought he had built it himself.
No, well, he did, but he got the schematics from a smuggler. So, where do you think the smuggler got them? Well, probably Gadgetron, as always. We also saw a brief shot of Clank in a runaway sequence from Victor Von Ion aboard the Starship Phoenix in the Full Frontal Assault deck, which we have seen before.
Yeah, but now we get to actually see that it's it looks like it's a playable section.
Yeah, but for me it's disappointing in the way that it is playable, where it appears to very much be a boss arena and not an area where you can hang around in and at least walk around like you could in Full Frontal Assault.
That's interesting because I remember seeing on one of the playable sections when they first showed us the Clank playables that there were gold bolts and Clank sections as well, which sounds to me like either you can return to them or you're supposed to get them on a following go around in a New Game Plus if you miss them.
Yeah, but then this boss battle doesn't look like it has anything of importance on it, so there would be no reason to return to it. Yeah. We also saw a little bit more of Hovenalia with the Battalia route where you first meet the tank, as well as the grind rail section.
Yeah, and what I really like about the new grind rails is that they very much telegraph that those ring areas that you have to jump them. In the original game, they're there, and then the first time you don't jump over one and you take damage, you're like, oh, I need to jump whenever I see a ring. This time around, you can actually see the sparks coming off of them.
Yeah, and even then, because Ratchet and Clank 1 didn't have Dual Shock, it is actually hard to tell if you are losing health, because there are instances where Ratchet does that animation and he doesn't get hurt, like particular force fields, so you actually had to pay direct attention to your health to even realize that you were taking damage at all and weren't just inconvenienced.
Yeah, so I really like the fact that those little electroshockers have been added to the circles. They really telegraph to the player, hey, you need to jump this.
Yeah. And also just the look of the planet as well.
It's really pretty. See, normally I'm all for jungly, rainy planets and games because it shows off some really unique stuff with the medium, rain and whatnot. But they covered that with Rilgar this time around. That Rilgar is a neon rain-soaked metropolis, and that's super cool. So Battalia instead became cold, and the snow just looks gorgeous.
Yeah, the grind rail section looks really pretty. I do have a couple of concerns for the main route, because one of my problems with ice levels in nearly every video game is that they tend to be very monochromatic and boring because of the fact that it's almost entirely white, so it gets very repetitive. Games like Uncharted 2 got around this problem by introducing sections such as very blue ice caves and changing up the environment, but with a snowy environment it is very easy to make it feel all very samey. But then I guess that is mitigated by the fact that we're entering a big robot secret base.
Yeah. Now, for Hovenalia, the original Hoven part of Hovenalia, the Alia part is the actual level. The Hoven is the sort of cosmetic changes to it from people who've dubbed the new level. The original Hoven had ice caves and that big swimming section where you had to fight against the rising water. You
had to raise the water manually in the reservoir.
Yeah, you were raising it with the hydro displacer. It wasn't like Rilgar where you were just trying to run away from sewer water rising. Mm-hmm. But you were still navigating these slowly water rising caves, and that would have been perfect for blue ice caves, but this is entirely Battalia with a Hoven skin on it, so I don't think that cave's going to return.
Much like how BTS is BTS with the Umbra skin on it, with the orange neon, with the orange nebulae and the Snaggle Beast as the final boss fight, but it is very much 85% BTS rather than the other way around.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I don't see those ice caves returning because of what they were for. In Hoven, they were forgetting you the
Hydro Pack.
Hydro Pack, thank you, I just couldn't remember the name. And it looks like, from everything we've seen, that Clank either starts with it or Ratchet gives it to him on Veldin, because by the time we start on Novalis, from all of the trailers we've seen, the playthroughs we've seen, he already has it. So either has it from the beginning, or he gets it on Veldin right away.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if maybe it was like a parting gift from Grimroth, maybe, but I really don't see any space for Clank to receive the Hydro Pack if he didn't already start with it.
I do, when Ratchet takes him back to the shop to fix him up.
Okay, sure, but that's purely fixing him up. I mean, I
Yeah.
know he has expressed a penchant for, as with he very much has a reputation for going overboard with his fixes and doing more than he is asked to. But the fix up for Clank is very much sort of, we see it just as it happens. To me, there is no room for Ratchet to add that in unless he says so in dialogue. The more important thing is him fixing Clank and learning about the Rangers.
Yeah. No, I agree. So it's pretty likely that Clank already starts with it, but either way, by the time you're on Novalis, he already has it. Unless it's a debug thing for the streams that we saw. Yeah, for the press.
Which wouldn't surprise me because Ratchet also had a surprisingly long bolt pickup range. Like he already had the armor magnetizer as well.
I wonder if that's in play or if that's a debug.
I'm thinking it might have been a press-specific debug where, yeah, the build of the game is pretty much near final, but they added the Hydra pack and the bolt grabber just to make it a bit easier for the press so that they weren't so annoyed at running around and micromanaging bolts all the time. You know, nannying around like it's a Lego game.
Yeah, especially considering that it looked to me like they had an 80-minute max upload. Like, more than one site said 80 minutes with, and that's a very odd specific amount of time. So that might have been part of their contract as to how much they were allowed to upload, and by giving them the bolt grabber and giving them the Hydro pack, you can move around the game quicker, and you don't have to micromanage getting bolts to buy the new weapons you need to keep going.
Yeah. 80 minutes in itself isn't a crazy specific number. It becomes a crazy specific number when multiple sites use that exact same number.
Yeah, which leads me to believe that that's probably the limit that they were allowed to upload.
Yeah. So, speaking of the game going gold, big news! Item number 4, the game is going gold! Insomniac tweeted out a picture of the first Ratchet & Clank 2016 disc and stated that the game has gone gold, meaning it is for all intents and purposes finished, outside of patches, which kind of spoils the moment. It also revealed the disc art, the screenshot of Ratchet looking up into the sky in front of Grimroth's garage that we've seen before.
Yeah, I really like the art, and I think, is this the first Ratchet & Clank game that uses in-game art on its disc?
Hard to tell. I mean, the disc art can vary between regions, so, but, yeah, I think you are correct. I mean, you can make an argument for, say, the Ratchet & Clank trilogy, which uses a screenshot of, a heavily modified screenshot of Canal City on NoTac from Going Commando as the background city, but that is not using a screenshot as directly as the PS4 game seems to do.
I mean, I've got nothing else to say other than I'm super excited and Amazon already has my money.
Yeah, Mighty Ape already has my money. So, yeah, I mean, I know I pointed out a couple of inaccuracies with the holo cards. I wonder if they will actually be adjusted, or if Insomniac doesn't see it as important to, sneak it in with a patch.
I mean, in the PS2 days, patches? What patches? The game you got is the game you got because most people didn't have internet connection with them. PS3?
Well, actually, there is an exception. Insomniac's very sneaky and totally you're not supposed to be doing this patch for Up Your Arsenal.
How did they patch Up Your Arsenal?
Okay, so what happened, this is going to be a bit of bridge. I can't remember the exact method of how they did this, but basically Up Your Arsenal had several bugs that Insomniac wanted to patch out. So what they did was the Up Your Arsenal multiplayer has a lot of it loaded onto the PS2's RAM. And when the multiplayer connects online, the patch is done by actually overwriting what is stored on the RAM on the PS2 with new code to put the patch in. Yeah.
See, I never Up Your Arsenal. I had the Japanese disc. I never had the American version. And
so yeah, and what that also meant actually is that the HD version of Up Your Arsenal multiplayer was pre-patched, so it had more bugs than ever before.
I have yet to play the multiplayer, so I'm gonna need
It's
to
okay.
fix that.
I actually really enjoyed playing split screen with my sister in the siege mode, mainly because I was winning all the time because she wasn't good at video games back then. So the final item of the day, item number 5, is movie clips. There was a panel at WonderCon with the director Kevin Monroe and the voice actors James Arnold Taylor, David Kay, and Bella Thorne. You've probably heard of at least one of them. And new clips were shown off of the movie, 2 of which have been uploaded to Gramercy's YouTube, and the other 2 have yet to appear. The first is Ratchet's rescue and meeting of Clank, which has more footage compared to the version that we saw in the game while we were at PSX.
Yeah, so the 2 clips that have been uploaded, one of them is an expanded version of the PSX one, and the other one is a totally new clip about Clank attempting and pretty badly failing to fly the ship that Ratchet and Clank are in on Metropolis.
Yeah. The first clip I actually found interesting because I knew literally what happened in that scene thanks to the novelization. It plays off a lot better, I think, in the film than it does in the novel. But on PSX, it is very much abridged. In the game version of the cutscene, Ratchet arrives, slides down the slope, and then he's immediately at the ship. He pops open the front of the ship, the windshield, and then he is immediately swingshotting up to the top of the cliff just before the ship explodes. In the movie, Ratchet slides down the slope, he swingshots onto a higher outcropping and swings over, looks down at the ship, lowers himself down, and has an interesting exchange with the ship's computer about how you should say, prepare for imminent death.
Prepare for imminent death!
Yeah, and then he pulls himself out of the ship, and then it explodes, and then both scenes continue identically.
Yeah, so I love the ship's computer. Just the computers in general that we've seen so far of Ratchet and Clank have been incredibly sassy. It's wonderful.
Yeah, they were GLaDOS before GLaDOS.
Aphelion always holds a special place in my heart.
Same here, but mostly because of how underutilized she is. I mean, here is a character who has potentially, wealth of information about the Lombaxes, or at least what hasn't been damaged or erased, and yet we never actually see Ratchet strike up a conversation with her asking about what the Lombaxes were like or anything, and the fact that she is consistently written into a much more minor role considering she is a talking ship who Ratchet interacts with at every single level. Yeah, I have been a bit bitter about how Aphelion is very underrepresented in the games. I mean, her only significant conversation of note is when Ratchet first meets her, and then she shuts up for the entirety of the series.
Yeah, she talks for a little bit in A Crack in Time, but then after that she's just silent.
Yeah, a big waste. Back onto the little clip, I did actually notice an audible difference between the PSX version and the cutscene preview, where there is actually a sound effect for Clank's knee buckling under its damage as he walks, which it more obviously tells the audience what the damage to Clank is, in addition to the fact that his walk is stilted and there are sparks coming out of his knee.
Yeah, so you have the clear visual indication that his servo has popped open and you can see the inside. Then you've got the sparks, and then you also have the sound.
Yes.
Trying to think of what else from the clips that was really interesting. Oh, also we finally get the context for that clip of Clank opening his shutters.
Yeah, we do. He is actually, Ratchet is busted over his lie that he is actually friends with the Galactic Rangers.
Yeah, so it turns out he has a recording device in his chest.
Yeah, so he records everything Ratchet says, which is, a little bit creepy, Giant Clank is watching you and all that.
Ceiling Clank is watching you.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the rest of that sentence.
That's why I stopped it where I did. But yes. So, and also the little studs on the front of his chest are actually buttons that do things. They're not just there for decoration or holding the plates in place.
Yeah, makes me wonder what all of his knuckle studs do. Do they activate the polymorphic blaster cannon in each of his fingertips?
That would actually be pretty cool. That if he pressed a button on his fingertip, bzzzt.
The other thing that I really liked about that particular sequence was the sound design for when Ratchet rescues the ship and blasts off. It's so cool. I've listened to that one particular ending just for the sound effect like 10 times now.
The whoosh sound of it whooshing away.
Yeah, I'll play it for the audience for them right about now.
I can fix this!
That was awesome!
Yeah, how cool was that?
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and also the fact that when Ratchet smashes through the billboard, what's on the billboard?
It's the crotchetizer.
Yes, it's Quark, an advertisement for Captain Quark's B-20 crotchetizer, which looks very similar, and Captain Quark is even in a draw me like one of your French girls pose.
Yeah, for about 3 seconds before Ratchet busts all the way through the billboard and sends glass shattering to the land below.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, okay, sure, Ratchet was able to save the ship from smashing into that Quark fan, but why is the Quark fan not absolutely shredded by the glass?
It looked like the glass got pushed outwards, which is what would happen if something was impacting it. So if he's directly under the billboard, he'd be safe.
Yeah, but then Ratchet's ship sort of spins down in an arc.
That is true. Let's just call it plot. Let's just call it plot armor.
No, that's Ratchet's final armor upgrade, which he conveniently forgot to wear when visiting the Great Clock with Azimuth. Ha ha ha.
Do not bring that up. I actually cried.
Yeah. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the episode, I'd say.
Yeah.
The final thing that I wanted to mention was I decided to bring up PlayStation's YouTube channel and scroll down to the story trailer, which at the moment is on the cusp of 2 million views. It is currently on 1,966,289 views as of about half an hour ago. And I've listed the videos by most popular, so it is more popular than the official Destiny gameplay trailer from E3 2016, the Beyond Two Souls Tribeca trailer, the Drive Club trailer from the same E3, surprisingly the All For One Team Up trailer, which also had a really good song for it. It was Cradle. The Order 1886 announcement trailer, also from E3, Grand Theft Auto 5 first person experience video, a Black Ops 3 bundle, the official Arkham Knight TV spot, and the Ratchet & Clank film trailer from E3 2014.
Right, there was a trailer in 2014, wasn't there?
Yeah, as well as the Mankind Divided announcement trailer from about a year ago. So, yeah, very, very popular. In fact, let's check what it's doing. Okay, I'm going to cut that out. It's really not that much higher.
But also
so, yes.
Keep in mind that this trailer's only been out since Thursday?
Yeah, it's been out for 4 days, and it is more popular than a Destiny gameplay reveal trailer from 2 years ago.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Let me just refresh the page. Need to scroll down. Nope, no significant movement really. Oh, it is actually more popular than the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection trailer, Life of a Thief, which is the one which sort of goes through Drake's history almost. Yeah, that was a really, really cool trailer. Funnily enough, guess what the second most popular PlayStation video is on their channel?
What?
The How PlayStation Uses Used Games instructional video.
I
Yeah.
loved that video. The one of just Shuhei handing someone else a game.
Yeah, Adam Boyes. Sort of
Yeah.
like a, this is how games work on PS4. Step 1. Here you go. Thanks.
It was making fun of the Xbox One as to no used games.
Yeah, or at least how used games work. Sort of like, nope, same as before. Okay, carry on.
It was just such a wonderful pot shot. I remember that fight.
Yeah,
And-
that was Sony. A lot of games journalists said they hadn't seen that kind of pot shotting since the PS2 days.
No, they hadn't. And back then it was the PS2, the N64, and the Dreamcast?
No, the GameCube.
The GameCube and the Dreamcast.
And the Xbox.
Oh, right, the original Xbox was during the PS2 era.
Yeah, the Dreamcast, well, the Dreamcast was sort of between the PS1 and the PS2. Much like the Wii U, I feel like the Dreamcast was killed by the fact that it released halfway between generations, so people weren't really willing to buy it because they were just going to wait for the next generation to start, and then the Dreamcast was instantly outdated. Same thing with the Wii U, I felt, in addition to all of its other woes. The fact that it was released sort of in between generations meant that people were like, this is awkward, I don't really want to buy this.
Also, because it wasn't clearly a numbered system like the PS2, 3, 4, Wii U, how is that different than a Wii? A lot of people didn't
Yeah.
realize it was an entirely new system.
Yeah, that's part of what I mean.
The 3DS actually had that problem for the first 2 years of its life.
And the new 3DS after it.
That isn't a new system, though.
Well, Nintendo sure wants you to think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's all of, 2, 3 games that actually work on the the new 3DS that don't work on the old one?
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're getting a bit off the rails.
We are, sorry.
Right.
But on that note...
Just start the intro in a way that I can easily cut it in, I suppose. Also,
Yeah.
the ending plug shouldn't be, and now we plug. It should be something that we very briskly go through, I think.
Yeah, sure. And on that note, I think we've covered everything we want to touch on.
Yep, until next time, which will probably be when the game comes out, I would imagine. I mean, there is a couple of stuff as well, but really the next big thing to happen will be, I believe, the game coming out and seeing how the reviews say, it sucks and it's not new. And we're like, but no, it's Ratchet, it's better than ever.
I'm more interested to see people. I'm interested to see 2 different types of people. One, people who've played Ratchet games for a while and then maybe gave up on them. So somebody who hasn't played since like A Crack in Time at the latest.
Yeah.
Or 2, people who've never played a Ratchet game at all because it's like, I'm not interested in platformers. I'm more interested in those people than the people who like Ratchet and Clank like you and I. Really, like, they would have to seriously screw something major up for me to not like this game. So I'm biased. The game and the movie are going to feed off of each other. The game is probably going to feed more into the movie just because the barriers to entry, if you're going to see the movie first, involve already owning a PS4 to get the game. But I think the fact that they're coming out so close to one another and that it's not a cheap tie-in game, that it's an actual true game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as far as tie-in games go, Ratchet & Clank will probably be the best tie-in game. I mean, I'm sure there are better tie-in games that are better games, but as far as tying into the movie, you can't get any better than having the original creators make a fully fledged new Ratchet game based on your movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, it is literally the perfect storm. So, I'm super excited. It looks like with all the marketing that's going on, that people are excited for this. But ultimately, we are going to have to twiddle our thumbs for a little bit and wait for the game to come out. I'm getting it release day. I don't know about you. Is yours coming out the day it comes out?
Yeah, although the actual release date is a couple of days later.
So I will not spoil anything for you. But you can check out...
It's April 12th for America, and I believe it is April 19th, 20th around about for everywhere else.
Yes, that is true. And in a few places it's the 29th, same as the movie. So, but between now and then, April 15th, we'll be doing our charity stream on Twitch. But yeah, so you can check out, play the game when it comes out in your country. We'll be doing a playthrough of the first couple of levels until the donations stop trickling in, and or we pass out, because we're going to be in giant mascot costumes playing Ratchet and Clank as Ratchet, Clank, and Nefarious.
Yeah.
On April 15th, and then the movie comes out just 2 short weeks later. So,
If you want to catch up with us in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at Lunar_Observer. You're already watching the YouTube, most likely, which is the Lunar Observer podcast, and on Tumblr we are lunarobserver.tumblr.com, and we don't have a Facebook.
Nope, no Facebook. But if you do want to catch us and don't have a Twitter, you can also find us on the Insomniac forums. I'm Division 10.
I am Kebabs, KBABZ in capitals.
Yep, and there's a hyphen between the words Division and 10. It has nothing to do with the Division.
Nope. And hopefully the Division doesn't get 9 sequels.
Oh no, then I would get very confused. No, it's actually a reference to an older Japanese TV show. But on that note, we're gonna call it a wrap, right?
Yep.
See you on the other side.
Yep.
Good night.
See you guys
Goodbye.
later. Bye.